Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, I wanted to talk about two different baits that weren't designed to catch bass, but they could potentially be some of my favorite baits, especially for this time of year, wintertime. And one is a bait that I've used a lot secretly and have caught a lot of fish. In fact, I had my first top 10 on the FLW tour years ago as a rookie, partly because of this one of these baits, and then the other one was just introduced at this year's iCast, and I haven't had a lot of on the water experience with it, but I know just from seeing it in the water how it acts and the innovative system that they created for this bait, which we'll get into, that it's going to be a key player for me. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The very first bait that never was designed for bass. Obviously, you know, there are plenty of baits out there that you can catch bass on that weren't designed for them. But this one right here is one of them. This is obviously a single-bladed, Colorado-bladed spinner bait made by Z-Man. This is actually a bait that has been discontinued. And forgive me because I forget the name of this particular spinner bait. And I don't have any packages to share the name. There's a newer version that is very much similar, pretty much exactly the same concept, called the Bullseye spinner bait. And this spinner bait is designed specifically for saltwater fish and inshore fish, and more specifically redfish. This is a redfish killer, but catches a lot of different saltwater fish. And I really haven't seen anybody else throwing this bait for bass. And the one thing that really keyed me into throwing this for bass was we were filming a show for Sweetwater years ago. It was like the second season for Sweetwater, and we were down in Louisiana targeting big giant bull redfish, and I was using a chatterbait, and I started throwing this thing, and I couldn't believe the vibration that you got with this bait. I don't know if it's because you have that kind of like free hanging hinge design there, like you see there. It's not like a traditional spinnerbait, which you have just a straight wire that goes into the head and it doesn't pivot or anything like that. This actually has a lot of movement to it, but it also has a super dense wire. Like, it's a really thick bomber wire that can handle those big fish. I don't know what it is, because it has way more vibration than just a traditional, Colorado bladed spinnerbait. You can put the same blade on another spinnerbait, more traditional design spinnerbait, and it has way more vibration overall on this package. So anyways, between, the extra vibration, the fact that you can catch a ton of different big bass on this on this bait, and you're not gonna break it. Essentially the wire is never gonna break on this thing. I mean, that's just put it simply and bluntly, it's just not going to break, because usually the breaking on a spinnerbait happens because you've got a lighter wire, number one, and number two, the wire goes into the head of the bait and it totally bends. But this, when the fish fights, you've got this super strong, wire here that's just, wrapped around and everything, but the head pivots. So there's really not going to be the same type of stress that you get on traditional spinnerbait wires with this one. And I really only use this bait during the wintertime and the pre-spawn. And the reason why this is such a good bait is, yeah, you could throw a chatterbait and catch fish in the same situation, but I really feel like you can slow roll this presentation way better than you can just about anything else. Obviously, another single-bladed spinnerbait can do very well as well. But again, you get more vibration with this. You get a vibration that's closer to a chatterbait with this particular style the spinnerbait. And so the tournament that I was alluding to earlier that I fished with partly with this bait, most of the time I was fishing the sling blades and customizing it to have just a single Colorado blade. Okay, so most of my fish came off of that, but I had several fish that I weighed in that came off of this package right here, this little spinnerbait deal, this saltwater rig. One of the kind of the drawbacks now I'm looking at it is the coloration. You know, they never really came out in like bass centric colors. You know, saltwater fish tend to really smoke these real bright colored baits. But you know, during the wintertime, I actually like chartreuse a lot. So the chartreuse head really didn't bother me that much. They also made it in red, like a bright red. Wasn't too stoked on that. Never really threw it. But I can, you know, throw a good either pearl or pearl and chartreuse trailer on there. I put the new chatter spike on there. Actually, I've never fished this combination before, just letting you guys know. Usually I'm throwing a swim bait, but it just kind of looked good. I bet it'll work. Definitely. But yeah, that bait right there is an absolute killer for not only saltwater fish, but also for freshwater. For me, it's been proven time and time again. Anytime I've got dirty water where I feel like a spinnerbait should work really well, single-bladed Colorado blade, but I want something with a little bit more thump, this one does the trick. And also when I'm fishing around really big fish, that one tends to do really well. The only drawback I see, other than the colors that are available, because it's saltwater bait, and again, this is discontinued, so the bullseye spinnerbait might have better color combinations. But the biggest drawback is the fact that I feel like with a swing head design like this, you get a lot of fish that miss the bait. They actually will come over to it and push the bait sideways and miss the hook overall. So I feel like I've missed some, like I could feel them push the bait and there's nothing there. I've had that happen before. It's not like a huge problem, but I have noticed it more than a traditional spinnerbait. Usually a traditional spinnerbait, you're gonna hook them for at least a little bit of time. But this one, I do miss some. But anyways, that is a killer spinnerbait. I'm sorry, Z-Man, for forgetting exactly what that one was called, the exact name of it, but I tried to look it up, couldn't find it. But the other bait that is specifically designed for saltwater, but is an absolute, gonna be... all right, but anyways, the next bait that is designed for saltwater, but is absolutely, I'm convinced it's going to be a killer for bass fishing, and I think that they're going to probably come out with a freshwater centric design, a bass, focused design. But this is the new Mulletron LT from Z-Man. This was introduced at ICAST last year. Let's go ahead and open this up. And the first thing when we're opening this up, I do want to remind everybody, if a company, especially for swim baits, they give you a clamshell, like we've got here, right here, never throw away the clamshell. That's where you should be keeping your swim bait in perpetuity. So always make sure you keep those clamshells because, man, they are specifically fitted for the bait that you're throwing, and they keep the bait from kinking. This one is definitely doing a good job of protecting the bait. Anyways, here we go. Come on, it's stuck in there. All right, so this is the smaller version. I think it's 4.5 inch. Let me just make sure. Yeah, 4.5 inch, and then they got the 6-inch version as well. I think this is probably going to be a bigger player for me in the bass world, but this one definitely is interesting because you don't see a lot of swim baits that are that size, that 4.5-inch swim bait, that are internally weighted and have a single hook on them. And that is really one of the coolest things about this bait. I've talked about it a couple times, but very innovative design overall. You've got that wedge tail on the back. That's not innovative in itself because West Coast guys have been using like Huddlestons for years, and it's very, very similar to that. So it has a good sauntering, swimming action to it. So that's kind of a proven design overall. It's a little tweaked, but the line through hook design that they put in this thing is pretty incredible. So the line through design, actually, you have this hook. It's a pretty cool angular hook. I think it's going to work really well. Very strong. You essentially put the line through the top of the nose there, that hole, and then bring it through. And then it has this cavity in here and where the hook sits. Bring the line through, and then you tie it to the hook, obviously. But that's not what's special about it, because there's a lot of line through designs. But as you can see here, when I put this hook back, it kind of like clicks in there. All right, I don't know if you saw that, but it clicks in there, and it doesn't want to roll from side to side. So it is like firm in there. It feels like it's actually molded into the bait, and that it's not a line through. Usually line through hooks are usually like a treble hook, belly treble hook or something like that, and they can kind of go wherever they want. But this right here locks in place until the fight. So when you hook a fish, the swim bait will disconnect and reduce or eliminate completely the leverage that the fish has to throw the hook, because really the bulk of the weight, the majority of the weight in this whole deal is in the bait, obviously. So there's going to be very little leverage to throw this hook. So very different than traditional line throughs that have treble hooks. And the reason why I think that this is going to be more important is because where I like to throw these type of swim baits is usually around brush. So like if I'm fishing a brush pile, I want a bait that, number one, I can fish really slow, which this style tail works very well for that. And number two, has a hook system that allows me to work this bait through that brush without getting snagged. So like belly hooked belly treble hooks are out of the question, because those are the first ones to get snagged. And then you can use just a molded in single hook on the top bait, swim bait. But I feel like this one right here gives that added benefit of disconnecting and reducing the amount of fish that can throw this bait. Now, for this smaller one, I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal. There's just not as much weight there to throw this. But with something like the 6-ounce or 6-inch version, way more weight, way more capability for the fish to use the weight of the bait to throw the hook. So anyways, and again, I haven't thrown this much. I got to play around with the Mulletron LT in the tank at iCast, and that was kind of the main thing. Like, it had to pass the swim test. If it didn't swim right, I don't care what type of hook design, line through hook design that they've got in there. It's just, to me, it doesn't matter, because it has to be able to catch those fish, get those fish to bite first. And let me tell you, it's got a excellent action to it. Very, very attractive action overall, and so I'm really excited about it. But again, I haven't got to get out on the water with it much. I haven't gone on the water hardly at all this winter, because we've got the baby at home. We're not taking her to daycare. I'm taking care of her. So this is one when we can start taking the baby to daycare, and I can start doing on the water videos again, on the water content, and just get out there on the water. This is one that I'm going to be throwing a lot. So it may be one that I'm actually regretting talking about in videos like this. I actually think it might be. I think it's one that I might keep secret. So if you don't see me doing a lot of content about this in the future, it's probably because it works. But anyways, guys, those are two different baits that were designed. Obviously the Mulletron, it's shaped like a mullet. It doesn't have like the traditional design of like a shad or a shiner or something like that. It's close enough. That's why I like this color. I think this color is called Mossback. This is my favorite out of the different colors. This one right here, I don't know how I got this one. This one's kind of accident, but Midnight Express is this one. It's kind of like purple and black. So didn't mean to get that one, but the Mossback looks really, really, really good. So anyways, guys, not designed for freshwater, but it's definitely going to catch some bass. Anyways, guys, those are two different baits that I've really used for freshwater applications, even though they were designed for saltwater. And I've got a few more that I'll show you guys at other seasons. I've got some hard baits, non-Z-Man stuff, some hard baits that I've used over the years that are designed for saltwater and I use for freshwater. So we'll get into those on a different occasion. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about these two different baits in the comments below. Do you think that they'll work for your fishing style and where you live? I'd like to know. So thank you, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment below. I'm going to see you out on the water. Trust the process.